Good morning, ladies, gentlemen. It's nice to see you one more time. Okay, so let's begin with today's topic. Uh, what we are going to learn today according to the schedule. Okay, so according to the schedule, today and tomorrow, 9 a.m., we're going to talk about the forum, our next vacations, right? And the proposal dates for you to present this activity, to complete and approve this activity, is until the 7th of November 2024. I mean, once again, the same thing I mentioned in the session number 1 and 2. You're going to have time until the 21st to present all activities, test, the forum, the presentation, and the video presentation, but we suggest you to present this specific activity before the 7th of November in order for you to don't have a lot of work, to don't be overwhelmed of the amount of work you have to present and don't leave everything at the end of the for the end, vale? Just in case I need to give you feedback, and maybe sometimes in this feedback, sometimes people have to correct the activities and present them again. So it's better for you not to leave everything for the end of the course. Vale? Okay, so taking that into account, what are we going to present in the forum? What are the learning guide requirements? What are the steps to follow? Okay, so according to the learning guide, the evidence foro en mis próximas vacaciones says la presente evidencia corresponde a un espacio de aprendizaje colaborativo en el que es importante enriquecer su desenvolvimiento al exponer ideas mediante la redacción de frases u oraciones en inglés. Vale. Realiza una composición de no menos de 10 líneas, so this is the key, 10 líneas, en donde exponga al menos 10 actividades, so 10 líneas, 10 actividades, una línea por una actividad, o acciones a realizar durante este periodo de vacaciones, de tiempo vacacional, perdón, utilizando verbos modales. So, we need to use modal verbs, ¿vale? Intervención. Debe estructurar ideas respondiendo cada una de las preguntas que se le presentan. ¿Cuáles preguntas? Estas 5. When would you request your vacation from work? How many days would you have for vacation? Where would you go on vacation? And so on, y demás. A partir de esas respuestas, desarrolle su composición escrita y distinga qué vocabulario y expresiones necesita. Es decir, piense de manera ordenada sobre sus próximas vacaciones. Okay, let's continue checking what the learning guide says. After that, you're going to participate once again, answering these questions or making these questions to one of your partners. So, where could you go on vacation? Do you enjoy your vacation? Do you think vacations are important, necessary, and so on? And yeah, that's it. This is what you have to present for this occasion in the forum. So, the platform is already working. So, if we go to Zayuna, I'll share with you the way you can go to Zayuna. I mean, you already know how this works, but it's important just to check it again. So once we are in Zayuna, we open the course English Does Work Level 5, our course, I mean. Then we go to Actividad de Aprendizaje Guía. When we click in there, we are going to have many options here. And the forum is here. Forum is Próximas Vacaciones. Once we type in there, some of you have already participated. We click in Añadir nuevo tema de debate, type our participation, and once we have participated in there, we click in Enviar al foro, and that's it. I will give you feedback as soon as possible. ¿Vale? That's it. Everything you need to know about this is already mentioned. But now we already know what we have to present, what we have to do, what are the requirements for this activity. We already know that. The question is, what do we need to present this activity? Well, we need, according to the learning guide, we are going to need, where is it? Modal verbs, utilizando verbos modales. So we are not going to use anything in past, present, or something like that, but instead we need modal verbs. So we are going to focus in modal verbs right now. So what are they? What are modal verbs? What is that? So, a modal verb is kind of an auxiliary verb. Therefore, when we use modal verbs, we don't need to use another auxiliary verb. So we can use it in simple present tense, for example, in simple past tense, future, and so on. And when we use them, when we use the modal verb can, could, good, must, shall, ought to, will, have to, good, and so on, we are not going to use another auxiliary verb. So we are going to skip, stop using did, does, do, and so on, because, or have, for example, because we already have the modal verb in there, because this is the most, this replace the auxiliary verb, I mean, right? So these modal verbs act as auxiliary verbs, and they improve, give more give more strength. They strengthen a sentence. They kind of give asteroids to what we want to mention, and they express things like permissions, doubts, prepositions, prohibitions, obligations, suppositions, wishes, necessities, and polite requests, and so on, among others. Because modal verbs are used for many situations. So, because they are very useful, it's better to study them in steps, in groups, not all at once, because they require, we need to study them slowly, because the information is huge, it's enormous. So that's why we are going to study them in groups, step by step. For now, we need to know that modal verbs are auxiliary verbs, and they improve or modify or give asteroids to the ideas we are mentioning in a specific moment of time. So, in general, modal verbs can express ability, obligation, prohibition, advice, possibility, or permission. We are going to focus in these two sessions in two verbs, can, could, to talk about ability, to talk about good. So this is another modal verb. And next time, I mean next class, I mean tomorrow, we are going to talk about request and permission. So all modal verbs are not here, because there are these are some examples, but modal verbs can be used to talk, to express possibility, request, ability, obligation, advice, and prohibition. This is what it matters. This is what matters. So they can be used in present, in past, in future, and sometimes they are going to be modified. Not like a simple present tense auxiliary verb do that changes to does or did in past. That's what you learn in level 4, but they have kind of different conjugations. I mean, they are not conjugated. Instead, they have variation of the verb that's going to be studied in different situations. And that's what we are going to do in a moment. So the idea of these modal verbs is that they are going to come before the main verb, especially when we are talking about simple present tense. But when we are using any other kind of tenses, verbal tenses, perfect tenses, continuous tenses, and so on. Um, they are going to come before, right before the this verbal tense. I mean, between the subject and the main verb. I'm going to share with you some examples in a moment. So they come before the infinitive verb, especially with affirmative, with simple present tense. Okay, let's check a little more details of this. So, modal verbs, as we mentioned, are auxiliary verbs and they provide additional meaning to the main verb or to the verbal tense. They help, as we mentioned before, other verbs. They give steroids to the main verb. That's why they are auxiliary verbs, right? As we mentioned before, they can express ability, obligation, willingness, probability, suggestion, and other things in general. So once again, because the uses are abundant, we are going to use them, we are going to make them in groups so we can better understand them. So, especially in simple present tense, but not only there, when we use this kind of auxiliary verbs, these modal verbs, they are not, they are going to replace the main auxiliary verb because this is the auxiliary verb for nature, right? So we can say, mm, for example, in to ask for a permission using a modal verb, can I go to the bathroom? This is a permission, or may I go to the bathroom? So, what's the difference between can and may to ask for a permission? Because in Spanish, we are asking for a permission, and this is kind of similar. May, the difference between may and can is that may is much more formal. That's it. Let's see another example. We could say, without using a modal verb, I don't believe this. I just don't believe this, right? And this is simple present tense with a negative sentence. But if we want to use a modal verb, we're going to strengthen the meaning of what we are mentioning. So this is the idea of an auxiliary verb of these modal verbs. So I can't believe this. I don't believe this versus I can't believe this. The meaning is exactly the same, right? No lo creo. That's it. I don't believe it. I can't believe this. I can't believe it. The meaning is exactly the same. It expresses the ability that this is not possible, in my opinion, that this could have happened, right? The meaning is exactly the same, but the strengthen of this idea, the way I am telling you this, is different. It's like when we use the modal verb, we are having asteroids. And once again, we replace this modal verb, this modal verb replaces the auxiliary verb. The meaning is exactly the same, but the way we listen to this is stronger with the modal verb, right? This replaces the auxiliary verb. In simple present tense, just in simple present tense, when we use this modal verb, the main verb is not going to be modified. It's not going to be conjugated. In simple present tense, when we are mentioning that a man, a woman, or an animal are performing an action, for example, Marcos swims, right? The main verb changes, is modified, is conjugated. However, when we use a modal verb in this case, for the same affirmative sentence, the main verb is not going to change because we have the auxiliary verb. Also, we are giving the meaning of this, even though it's the same, is going to be stronger, it's fancier, right? He swims versus he can swim. Él nada, él puede nadar. The meaning is essentially the same, essentially, but the way we receive the message is kind of different. So this is what modal verbs do. They improve or change or modify or give asteroids to the meaning of this sentence, to the idea we are mentioning. And finally, as we mentioned before, they come before, they normally come before the verbal tense, or in general, the main verb in simple present tense, past tense, perfect tense, and so on. For example, they must be the Johnsons. In this case, the main verb is verb to be. They must have been the Johnsons. Once again, they come. The modal verb comes before the modal, the verbal tense. In this case, a perfect tense or a simple present tense in verb to be, in present simple. Sorry. So they come before the verbal tense. But when we have negative sentences, the modal verbs are modified with the negative sentence, and when we have questions, the modal verbs the modal verb comes generates, creates the question. It's like in simple present tense, we use do or does. In simple past tense, we used did, or for continuous tenses, I mean present continuous or past continuous, we used is, are, or was or were. So the modal verb will, shall, may, could, can, takes this role in questions. Okay, so let's go. We already know what's a modal verb. Let's go with let's go in let's let's explain in detail some verbs today, and tomorrow we're going to do the same. And let's begin with the verb good. Good is an auxiliary verb used to express many things, to talk about the past, talk about the future in the past. In this case, it's a kind of a condition. To express some conditional sentences, in this case is conditional number 3. To express, and this is what it matters for us for this evidence, for this activity, for this session, to express desire, wishes, polite requests, questions, opinions, hope, and regret. But for us, for the situation of this activity, just for the evidence we are going to present in the forum, we are going to think that good is used to express desire and wish. That's it. I mean, it's used for more things, obviously. We have already mentioned this, but this is what it's going to matter for us in this moment, to express desire and wish. Okay, so would is going to mean something like a ras, ra, remos, ran. Amaré, gustará. I'm sorry, ria. I'm sorry, I'm making a mistake with the modal verb will. It's like a ria, ria, rian, rías, riamos. Gustaría, amaríamos, probaría, and so on. This is the meaning of good. So good by itself is useless. It needs to come with another verb, because this verb is going to give asteroids to the main verb. For example, it's mainly used with the verb like. Me gustaría, nos gustaría, le gustaría, right? Because like means gustar, so gustaría, probaría, amaríamos, desearían, and so on. So this is kind of the meaning of good. Once again, the verb good needs another verb because it's going to improve it. It's going to give more asteroids. Okay, so for good, the contraction for good in affirmative sentences is this apostrophe and D. For example, I would like a cup of coffee, or I'd like a cup of coffee. The meaning is exactly the same. For negative sentences, as we did in simple present tense, simple past tense, continuous tenses, I'm mentioning them because you have already studied them in level 1, 2, 3, and 4, so you already know how they work. We could say, we said that the auxiliary verb is modified by adding the word not to create negative sentences, right? For example, with verb to be, I am not working in present continuous tense, or with simple present tense, she doesn't live in New York, for example. So the auxiliary verb is modified by adding the word not to create negative sentences, right? In this case, we're going to do something similar, because the modal verb, in this case, the modal good, is going to be modified by adding not. So good not, or good, the contraction. For example, the board of directors couldn't approve your investment project. Uh, or instead of saying couldn't, the long form could not. It's exactly the same. And to create a question, like any other verbal tense, we use the auxiliary verb at the beginning of the question, right? So, could you help me? Could you help me? For example, it always comes at the beginning of the question. So, we already know how this works, how model verb good works. The management is similar to the management of other verbs, so this is not complex to understand. So what it matters is that means, to better understand it, it's good to know that the meaning of this is like querría, querría, jugaríamos, tomaría, and so on, right? It comes with the other verb because it's going to support the main verb. And that's, for example, with good, for next vacation, for my next period of vacation, I could visit Rome. I could take a lot of pictures, but I couldn't swim in the Tiber River. I guess it's the Tiber. I'm not sure. Iría a Roma, tomaría muchas fotos, pero no me metería al río Tíber because it's forbidden, porque está prohibido, right? For example, in this case, I'm using the verb good to mention this situation, a wish or desire I would like to do, for example, in this case, in Rome, or in for my next vacation, or in Belgium, or in the coffee area here in Colombia, or I don't know, in Bogota, La Ermita, Cali, whatever, right? So this is how we can use good for our evidence. Let's continue with another couple of verbs, can and could. Can and could both express possibility and ability to do something. We can write. We could do. We could help in home chores, doing some home chores, for example. So they express a possibility or ability to do something in both cases, and they are also used to make requests and to ask permission. About request and permission, we are going to study these two verbs tomorrow in terms of how we can make requests and ask permission, but we are going to do that tomorrow. For now, let's remember that can and could are used to express that somebody is capable to do something or has the possibility to do something. Vale? So, if they are used for those two situations, what's the difference between can and could? Because they do something similar. So, in what context can we use can, and in what context can we use could? That's a good question, right? Well, can is used in present and could is used in past. For example, I can translate this article for you in this moment, right now, because I still have time and I know this article, this activity, had to be presented tomorrow. So you still have time, I still have time to do that. So this is something that we can do in the present. However, if we said I could translate that book or that article, I say that because the deadline is today at 10 a.m., we have only 30 minutes to complete the activity. I am saying that I'm not capable to do it because I have no time. So if you have asked me this yesterday, I could have time. I could have done it before. I could have done it yesterday in the evening, in the morning, in the afternoon, right? But now it's too late. I'm sorry, but I cannot do anything. So I was capable to do it yesterday with could. With can, I can do it now, today. I'm capable to do it. ¿Vale? So I'm mentioning a possibility in this case. What about the ability? For example, let's go with this. Jason could have scored another goal if his coach had kept him in. Let's focus in this part only. Jason could have scored another goal yesterday because or before the match ended, but the match is over and he's not playing anymore. He has an injury. Let's suppose that. So before before the coach had mentioned something, had made a replacement or something, because of his performance, he could have done another goal, and he could be the star of the game. It was the past, but it was the ability Jason had to do something great, right? This cannot be changed. We are mentioning something in the past. But if we say Jason can score another goal, we need to make reorganize the sentence because we are talking in present. Jason can score another goal in this case. We are mentioning that he's playing so good that he is capable to do another to win the match by himself, like Messi, right? They are playing in this soccer match. They are still in minute 61, so they still have like 29 minutes to complete the game to finish the game. Therefore, he's playing so well that, in my opinion, because of the ability he's showing in the game, he's going to be capable to do another score, to make another goal. So can is used in present and could is used in past. In this case, in both cases, we are mentioning the ability Jason has to do something. Okay? So can for present, could for past. What's the other difference between can and could? Can and could are used to talk about a hypothetical or conditional future. We are guessing that something's going to happen in the future, right? In both cases for can and could. But what's the difference between can and could to express an hypothetical future? The difference between can and could to express an hypothetical future is in the probability of something happen, the certainty of something happen. We cannot predict the future with 100% of accuracy, but we can get close to the prediction, right? So when the probability of success is huge, is enormous, right? The probability of success of this prediction is high. We are going to use can. It's very likely to happen. It's very probable to happen. Instead, we are going to use could when this future, when we are predicting the future, that is not highly probable to be a success. So there is a possibility that this event is not going to happen, and probably this in probability is a little big, right? So, in other words, can is used to describe scenarios that are more likely to happen in the future, in an hypothetical future, and could is used to describe scenarios that are less probable or likely to happen to occur in the future, because we are again describing something that's going to happen in the future. So something that's highly probable to happen because we have experience, we have the knowledge of this kind of situations. Once again, it's hypothetical. We are not 100% sure of this, but the probability is huge. It's this. You can get an infection if you keep picking at your wound, if you keep scratching after getting this tattoo. So you are going to have an injury in your arm, right? We know for experience that this happens very often. Not necessarily is going to happen to you, but the probability of this happening is huge, 99% of accuracy. Instead, for example, we could say this. I really think Steve could win this year's weightlifting contest. In my opinion, the event that's going to happen tomorrow, this weightlifting contest event that's going to be held tomorrow at 9 a.m., for this event, Steve has high probabilities of winning, in my opinion. But it's also highly probable that he doesn't win, doesn't get the first place. He might get in second, third, fourth place, because it's a contest where a lot of strong people are going to be presented, and it's going to be a difficult contest. It's going to be challenging, and maybe Steve is not highly prepared to win this. He's prepared, of course. He might win. It's possible, but the probability is not 100%. Maybe it's 60-40, 70-30, 50-50, because he's good, but not necessarily the best in the competition. Vale? So the probability is high. 70% is high, but not 100%. Vale? So the difference between this prediction of a hypothetical future is that is in the probability. Can for high probability of success in the prediction, and could for a lower probability of prediction of the future. And that's the difference between can and could. So in general, can and could express possibilities or abilities. Somebody has to do something, right? But can and could are differentiated because can is used in present, could in past. And to predict the future, that something's going to happen in the future, or in a hypothetical future, hypothetical. When we are predicting a hypothetical future, can and could are differentiated because can is more likely to happen and could is less likely to happen. This is the difference between can and could in this context. So this is all for today's lesson, guys. I remind you to present the activity using modal verbs. And tomorrow we are going to study again. We are going to continue studying some modal verbs. In this case, we are going to focus in modal verbs used for permission requests, offers, invitations, and we are going to use again can and could. So we are going to see another difference between these two modal verbs. So this is it for today's lesson. Don't forget that if you have any kind of questions, you can ask me through Zayuna or via email. So Zayuna is already working again. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me through there or through the email. Vale? So thank you very much for coming, and I will see you next time. Take care.